Good morning and welcome to Fantasy Sports for Dimwits, where people who want to be good at fantasy sports can come to get the help they need. I'm Ashton Packer. Today, I'm talking with fantasy sports pro Austin Pudlo, who plays fantasy football and baseball competitively. Since this is a Fantasy Sports for Dimwits, Austin will walk us through his process for playing and how he strategizes for a win. Good morning, Austin. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me, Ashton. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. So let's go ahead and get started. How long have you been a competitive sports player?
So I've been playing fantasy sports competitively for about 5 years now and playing it off and on for about 7.
So there are a lot of people out there that don't really understand exactly what it is to be a competitive fantasy player. Can you explain it to us? What is it that you do?
Sure. So I like to think of it as like a long-term wager or like a poker game. So you find a group of people that are willing to play for money, and you all put in a certain amount as a buy-in before the season starts. Then depending on the league, there might be transaction fees or whatnot, trades and such. But basically, at the end of the season, winners get paid and the losers lose their money. So that's kind of how it works out.
So there's a certain league that you participate in regularly?
Yeah, so I do a couple every year. I do one. It's with my old friends. We just do that one for bragging rights, but for some reason that one always means the most because it's just more fun when I can beat them, you know. But I play in about 2 or 3 other a year. Each of them are about $100 to a $500 buy-in, so winner gets about anywhere between like $600 to like $2,000-$3,000.
Wow, that's a lot of money for just playing fantasy sports. You must be really good at it.
I try not to suck. Yeah.
Okay, so you started with the drafting process. Can you tell us how you decide who you're going to draft first?
Well, it depends on 2 things. It depends on your personal preferences and rankings, and it depends on who you're drafting against. So, like, I know, for example, in my old friends league that we don't really play for a lot of money, but I know them because I know how they draft. I know that there's always going to be a high demand for quarterbacks early on. So sometimes I've done it where I just let them take all the quarterbacks they want to in the first couple rounds, and I'll take everyone else. And sometimes I've tried to jump in and get a quarterback early. It really depends. But honestly, the easiest way to do it, if you're trying to do it competitively, is to just do your research on the top prospects at each position. If you're thinking about doing it competitively, you know who you think is good, you know who you think might be good or think might be bad. You have kind of a beat or a kind of a feeling about some players. You just think, oh, well, they might be good, you know. And it's not always dependent on the position. So like quarterbacks, for example, in football, they're always going to be more likely or not your top points getters throughout the year or throughout week to week. But the difference between Tom Brady and Mitch Trubisky or Marcus Mariota, you're looking at a maybe 4 or 5 point swing week to week. But if you're going to draft him real high, when you could have the replacement level be that high as well, it's sometimes not worth it. So like a player like Todd Gurley or someone, like a really good running back or a really good wide receiver, drop off between them and like a replacement level person that you can get in later rounds, you're not talking 4 points. You're talking sometimes 10, 12, 15 if it's a really good week. So you just kind of want to balance that kind of scoring profile and try to build your team.
So what do you do if you're a little bit further into the season and suppose your Todd Gurley is injured for longer than you expected? What would be your backup plan for when something goes wrong?
So some people, they just kind of see that and they think, oh, well, I just need to pick up someone, and they just go and pick up the next person off the bench or off of free agents or waivers, however your system is, and they plug them in and play that. Some people, me personally, I like to build mine throughout the year. So like the first couple, like maybe first 4 weeks or so, is when I do the majority of my pickups and drops, because I'm trying to build I have a beat on who's my starting lineup, But I like to use my bench as kind of a worst case scenario and best case scenario. Going back to that floor and ceiling thing, I like to have a couple players at like marquee positions, so maybe a couple running backs or wide receivers that are going to have a good high floor that I can put them in if something happens to like my Todd Gurley or my Le'Veon Bell. We all know how that happened last year. It's like pick them up, stash them, hold on to them. Hopefully they turn into something.
Well, there you have it, straight from the pro himself. Thanks for being here, Austin.
Thanks, Ashton. I really appreciate it.
Tune in next week for our conversation with Joe Schmidt, fantasy basketball extraordinaire. Until next time, I'm Ashton Packer, and this is Fantasy Sports for Dimwits.